Do you see the band coming together again?
No.
Really? At all?
Huh?
Is this a statement that we put out? At all?
I don't know if I want it at this point. There's just too much drama involved, and I like going out and having a good time with my friends and playing shows. And I don't want that to disappear. There would have to be very strict guidelines for me to make another record with System again.
I was going to say, okay, so now that we're going in this direction, it's no secret that, you know, everyone in the band has different political views and opinions, which is fine, but how, you kind of answered my question, but how do you, even, I mean, I know now you're not making an album, but back in the day, was that a bit of an issue? How do you overcome something like that?
Yeah, well, you know, we had problems with that, you know, because Serge is very outspoken, and, you know, he has one way of thinking. Some things we agree with, the rest of the band, and some things we don't, right? Like some things we're exactly on par with, you know. My belief system is a little different, and I'll get into that with you in a little bit. But with Serge, it was like, well, you know, we don't want that to be the only thing, right? Because we don't feel like that's the only element of System of a Down. It's a big part of the band, right? Justice is a big part of the band. The justice has no politics. It's either just or unjust, right? It has no political affiliation. It either is or it isn't. But there's a lot of things that come into play, morality. So we just didn't want it to be like the only focal point. And that was, you know, Serge spent a lot of time talking about political stuff on stage. Now, I personally love it. Come in, it's all right, just be quiet, please. I personally love it. You know, the more crazy he got and into it, I believe like anything that's passionately displayed is worth listening to. Even if I completely disagree with it. If you're really passionate about it, I want to know what you think. You know? So I like that part of it. But the rest of the band, and me too, felt like it was just too much of our focus. Right? Like we don't just sing about, you know, lyrically, we don't just sing about politics. We sing about love, death, hate, stupid things, inane things, artistic things, insane things. It's all these things that make System of a Down so unique. So we didn't want the focal point to be politics, but that's kind of what Serge wanted to talk about at the time. You know, so we're in a weird situation where I don't want to limit what he has to say. You know,
We also don't
but
want
I don't want to limit
overshadow.
what people think of me either.
You have a valid point.
You know, and also you have to understand that when we first came out, nobody knew who Armenians were. We're an ex-Soviet Union communist country, right? Who is in a bitter 100+ year battle with an enemy that is one of the biggest allies of the United States. We have missile bases there. You know, let's see. It's a very conservative mindset in the early 2000s, especially, right? And it, you know, the pendulum swung all the way to the ridiculous, and we'll get into that. But like, you know, it just these were not popular opinions. The Zach De La Rocas, the Serge Tonkins, these were not the popular opinions. They became the popular opinions, but they were not at the time. And I guess I agreed more with it back then than I did at a later time, because I felt like once it becomes the status quo and the popular opinion, then you got to really shift your way of thinking. And if you don't, then you're governed by a way of thinking that you had at a more adolescent time in your attaining wisdom and everything else. And I believe you should always be open to changing your opinions on things.